Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
An interesting phenomenon you see in courts is once in a while you'll hear about a judge who gets in trouble for something he did before he was a judge, or she. And it's not often that you're in one job and you get in trouble for something you did at your old job. I mean, it's possible, but it doesn't seem as likely. And it happens from time to time in the courts with judges. I'll tell you a story from Michigan in a moment, but this one's from California. Justin sent it to me from the Orange County Register. State panel moves to discipline Orange County judge for allegedly hiding evidence when he'd been a prosecutor. Tony Saavedra wrote it. The State Commission on Judicial Performance has launched disciplinary proceedings against an Orange County judge who failed, while prosecutor, to disclose that police reports had been fabricated in a murder case, which involved the death of a sheriff's deputy for the LA County Sheriff's Department. The commission recently alleged that Superior Court Judge Michael Murray violated disclosure laws and used the falsified CHP reports to convict a former Long Beach man with causing the traffic death of a deputy who was driving to work about 5 a.m. in July of 2006. A stove stolen from a construction site fell off a pickup truck driven by a defendant, and it landed on the 91 freeway in Anaheim. The deputy died after swerving into a cement truck, allegedly to avoid the stove. Then, the defendant was convicted of murder and sentenced to 26 years to life, which ultimately was reduced by an appellate court to manslaughter and 4 years in prison. But by then, the man had already served 13 years in prison, so they released him. However, an investigation by the California Highway Patrol initially came to the conclusion that it was a deputy's driving and not the stove that was the primary cause of the accident. But a sergeant later had the report changed to support the prosecution's argument that the defendant was to blame. That same sergeant then changed 3 traffic reports by 3 other people that had concluded that driving speed and not the stove caused other collisions in the area. He then shredded the original reports according to the commission's charging document. So the judge now was the main prosecutor then and was told of the fabrications, according to the report. But he said that the forgeries had no bearing on the murder case, according to the Judicial Commission. He was elected to the bench in June of 2016. Now, the commission said, you violated your obligations under Brady versus Maryland, which mandates a disclosure of evidence favorable to the accused that is material either to guilt or punishment. As you can imagine, at this man's trial, if they had actually had copies of the original police reports, or they had testimony that the original police reports didn't work as well as they should, so they were shredded and new reports were created to make this guy look guilty. That's the kind of stuff that is what we call bombshell. That case wouldn't even get to the jury at that point. I mean, it's hard to imagine something better coming out for the defendant than the police realized that their initial reports wouldn't do it, so they shredded them and made new ones that said something else. Special masters appointed by the state Supreme Court will conduct a hearing, and the commission then has the ability to censure, suspend, or remove him from the bench. So we don't know what's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a fascinating story, and it's a crazy story because everyone knows that police reports get used in court, and they are extremely important. And I know that some police officers, when they're writing reports, have to be thinking, I got to be careful now because this is going to get shredded on cross-examination by a defense attorney. And defense attorneys do go through reports and nitpick them with a fine-tooth comb, to mix metaphors there, and look for things in there that might help their case or hurt the prosecution's case. And as you can imagine, 4 reports that say the deputy was kind of at fault for this would go a long way towards attacking and defending against that murder charge. So that is bizarre. And if that's what happened and the prosecutor didn't disclose it, that's a problem. Also, I certainly hope somebody is looking at disciplining the cops, because the cops shouldn't be shredding reports and writing new ones that are different from the first ones if the first ones are accurate. And if they're not, you got to ask yourself, why were they written then? So a lot of problems going around here. But right now we're simply talking about the judge and the state panel that looks into this. In Michigan, it's a judicial tenure commission. And judges in Michigan are elected. And once you get elected, you're on the bench. And there was a case a few years ago about a judge. And I actually liked the judge. I was in front of him a bunch of times. And the guy had been on the bench in a district court in Wayne County for quite a few years. And somebody figured something out. And I'm just going to tell you what the allegations are. It's been a while since I looked at it. I remember reading about it at the time. But before he was a judge, he was in private practice. And somebody came to him and said, I have a piece of property I want to sell. Can you assist me with that? He said, sure, I can. What's going on here? And the allegation was that this person said, I own this piece of property and I've got a buyer who's willing to pay this much money for it. And the judge looked at it and realized that that amount of money was way below what that property is worth. But rather than advising his client, hey, you're getting robbed here, we can get more for this property, the allegation was that the judge went out and through some behind-the-scenes trickery, managed to get this guy to sell his property to somebody else that was, in essence, him or the people he was working with. And his thinking was, well, the guy got more money. He got more money because he was going to sell it for this. I got him this, which is more money than he was offered. But of course, he's representing this guy. And he doesn't disclose that he had connections to the other people who were buying the property. And when that came out, it was several years later. And it appeared that it was pretty much that's what happened. And he's no longer on the bench. And it was a transaction that happened before he was a judge. Before he was a judge. He was just an attorney doing work for somebody locally on a piece of property. And that transaction came back to haunt him. So I know a lot of people, whenever I mention ethics and lawyers, people always, oh, lawyers are so scummy, they're so dirty, they're all evil, they all lie, blah, blah, blah. I have people post that under my videos. I'm a lawyer. You say all lawyers are liars on a video of mine, you're calling me a liar. But I won't go there right now. But my point is that there are things that if you get caught doing them, you'll get in trouble. And a judge can be kicked off the bench. They can lose their license to practice. And of course, lawyers can lose their license to practice also. So we'll see what happens here. But Justin sent it. It's a fascinating story. And it sounds like there's wrongdoing there. So we'll have to see what happens. But first of all, we have to wait and see what happens with the judge. But I'd also be curious to know what, if anything, has happened to the police who wrote reports that said one thing and then said, oh, you want us to get a better report? And they shredded those and rewrote the reports. And you might say, Steve, what if the second report was true? What if the first report was wrong? What if? Someone will always ask the hypothetical. What if? Well, ask yourself. You are a sheriff's deputy, and you're writing a report about one of your co-workers, another sheriff's deputy, who got killed in a traffic accident. You could write it up in a way that makes the person responsible charged with murder, or you could write it up in such a way and go, well, it's their fault. Which one are you more likely to write up if it's true? Because saying that the fellow trooper was at fault here would be the harder thing, I think, for the trooper to write. So the fact that they wrote that first tells us a lot, I believe. And they shredded it and said, oh, no, it was murder. I think the first one's more likely true. But that could just be me. By the way, I'm going to get a bunch of questions on this, and I should answer this on camera at least one time. This is a field day shirt, and all of the amateur radio operators in the audience will recognize it. And I'll get asked about a dozen times in the comments below, if I don't say this, why I'm wearing this shirt. Am I an amateur radio operator? No, I'm not. My brother was. I've known people who are. I've known several people who are. I don't know Morse code, but I know people who do. And I have things in the set, such as this cool radio tube over here, sent in by an amateur radio operator. And so there's a lot of references on the set to radio. I worked in radio as a disc jockey and then also as a talk show host. So I'm fascinated by all aspects of radio, the technology, the history, the science, just all of it. So my background is in radio broadcasting in the commercial sphere, but I do respect and admire the people in the amateur radio field as well. So I've got 2 field day shirts. I've got this one and one other, but I am not an amateur radio operator, but it was sent to me by viewers who are. That is the things that are on the set, including this t-shirt. So there you go. Justin, thanks for sending the story. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Get a move on. Don't worry whether anyone will give you credit for it. Be satisfied with even the smallest progress and treat the outcome of it all as unimportant.